What is going on, RotoGrinders? Welcome back to the Morning Grind. This is still Dean with you. Of course, Stevie is knocking out his NASCAR content. That's why I'm temporarily hosting the Morning Grind. Of course, if you guys want to get his NASCAR content, you know where to do so here at RotoGrinders.com. That said, today we are going to continue our DFS personality showcase. Sure, let's call it that. Why not? With that, let's bring in Will Priester. You guys know him better as ChiefJustICE06. What's going on, Chief?
Nothing much, man. Happy to be on. You know, the morning grind is how I got started. Well, actually, I got started on the weekend grind and then the morning grind. But the grind itself is how I got started. That was my first little piece of content. So I'm pretty excited to be on with you, man. And, you know, you used to live in Charleston. And right when I kind of got my foot in the door, you just ran out of town. So I'm glad to be on with you, and I can hold you hostage for an hour.
I'm happy to have you. I'm happy you're joining me. And it's so funny you mentioned that because, yeah, once we were kind of sort of basically neighbors. I was in Charleston. You're not too far from Charleston. And, you know, once I figured that out, I was basically 1 foot out the door. And I think I made like tentative plans one night. And I was like, yeah, let's meet up this night. And I feel like I may have like changed them on you at the last second. Did that happen? I don't know if it happened, but if it did, I apologize.
You know, that part I can't No, I actually don't think you changed plans. I think I had a babysitter issue. And so I think I had to end up keeping my girls and I couldn't come out. And that's how we ended up not linking up down here in the low country. But it's all good, man. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon.
Yeah. I have family there, so I'll be visiting and I'll be sure to stop by. And I'm just happy to hear that wasn't on me. I thought that was on me. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm so if it's on somebody else, I'm cool. Like whatever, that's fine. But I just don't want to.
Yeah, it's all my fault. It's all my fault.
Blame it on the kids. They can't watch themselves. You're 5 years old. It's time to grow up. Well, you were doing the weekend show. Who were you doing that with? Out of curiosity, I don't remember. Was that with Stevie as well, or?
No, it was me and Mangone actually at the time. The weekend grind, and it was MLB too, ironically. So that was a fun little ride.
We were just talking pre-show as far as trying to keep sharp from a DFS perspective. Of course, right now, no baseball, no Major League Baseball, no football just yet, no NBA, and like you have been playing, you have been dabbling in the TBT, and I think one of your contests goes live at some point during this recording. Hopefully, there's no late scratches. I've not yet dabbled in that. I've not watched that. What is that, like $1 million contest? Explain this. Do you know what it is? Do you know the origin of this contest?
Yeah, I mean, it's this really big contest. Any teams can get in if they apply. So essentially, I could get a couple of my buddies from around the area and try to get in the tournament. And, you know, if they accept me, I think they accept about 8 teams per region or something like that. But it's 64 teams, and they dwindle it down, and whoever wins, you know, wins $1 million. And so, you know, it's a pretty unique thing. A lot of old college players are in there. You know, some older NBA players like today, you know, Joe Johnson will be in the building playing with.
Oh, is he? I was going to ask who's the biggest name that I might recognize. Joe Johnson?
Yeah, I think Joe, old, right? Yeah, Joe is probably the biggest name playing today in the overseas elites, I think. So I'm sure he's going to be pretty high owned. I'll probably be under the field. I got to assume he's going to be about 70%. And you can tell we're getting back close to real DFS when I start quoting ownership percentages for niche sports. But at any rate, yeah, it's been fun, man, just trying to get myself ramped back up because, you know, there's $1 million on the line for 2 games on FanDuel. And I want to see if I can, you know, crack the egg open and get $1 million off of a 2-game slate. If I do that, I'll be the GOAT.
If you're putting a team together, I highly recommend you do not scout the RotoGrinders team. You do not want any of those players on the RG basketball team. From what I've seen, the video footage, Nicole was shooting some video of it. They weren't very impressive. Crane, especially. I don't care how cheap he works. Do not sign Crane in the squad. I don't think, did you happen to catch any of those highlights I use the word highlights loosely.
I caught a few, which I was pretty bummed out about that too. I ended up missing the RG party. You know, I was supposed to be on Team Dan, and I feel like we might have taken this thing down. So, Dan, I owe you a championship trophy. And, you know, as long as COVID-19 doesn't become COVID-20 in 2021, then I'll be there. Hopefully we can bring this trophy on home to Team Dan.
I'm using air quotes. He had an injury too, Dan. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. He didn't play either. So that whole squad like had different issues, I suppose. Yeah. I'm not really sure. You stacked them. They had to play all 48 minutes, I think.
It's all right. We'll run it back.
What else are you dabbling in? I asked this, but I pulled up your RotoGrinders page, and you've been dabbling in NASCAR. It says MLB, but I assume that's the KBO. Some esports, some golf. You're all over the place, man.
Yeah, I just throw a little something in there here and there just to kind of keep myself going. Like I said, I probably should be playing a lot more golf. I probably should just be pooling all my resources into playing golf. Because I am typically pretty good at it when I play. I just golf is a different type of research for me, and trying to do that KBO at 5:30 a.m. TBT, and look, me and Alan, we got to grind out these sims. We need our quarters, so we've been grinding these things out. That's just stuff I do to keep my mind fresh. It's not serious. I just go in there, throw a team together. And then, whatever happens. Yeah, man, just kind of been dibbling and dabbling. I played a little bit of esports, played a little bit of Counter-Strike Global, Global Offensive, played a little bit of League of Legends, just picking and popping a few little things just to kind of keep myself going.
Do you play those games on your own? Were you aware of those games before they became a DFS thing? Or is this just kind of like me? Like I play some video games, but not those.
Yeah, I mostly play sports games. So, mainly 2K, Madden, a little bit of MLB The Show. I'm not as serious about that, but those are kind of my top two, 2K and Madden. I was a big NBA Live guy back in the day, but, they kind of went away for a while and 2K took over, and I've kind of been exclusively on 2K. It would be nice if they got NCAA football back. That was one of my favorite games.
Yeah,
but all the licensing stuff with the players. But now that the players can make money, they might as well just bring it back and get that product back going. I mean, I don't really go to GameStop a lot, but I gotta assume a line will be out of the door around the corner for NCAA football if it ever hit the shelves again.
Yeah, I know people have been playing it on my Twitter feed. Like, is it 2014? Is that the last year? I know people have been playing that a good bit, and it's fun to run the option like that. That's kind of like a.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
Oregon was my favorite team on that game, by the way. Just Oregon, I think. Who was the quarterback there? It may have been Mariota. It may have been like you may have gotten a Mariota team, but
their Joey Harrington maybe, or no? Is that before 14?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but their playbook, man. They just had so many. They had like triple options and pitches and all this stuff, and it was just fun, man. So. That's usually who I played with when I was on, and that's not even my favorite team. My favorite team is Ohio State, but that Oregon team on that game is just incredibly fun.
I'm going to date myself, but I remember I'm old enough to have played the NCAA contest, the NCAA game with Dante Culpepper as my quarterback.
Oh, yeah, we're going way back. We're going way back now.
I had rep UCF, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. But how's Ohio State your team? I know you're currently in South Carolina. Charlotte is your pro team. Are you originally from Ohio, or what is the college team around that area? I'm trying to think that would be going to pop. I guess the Gamecocks aren't too far away.
Oh yeah. I mean the Gamecocks. So a little bit of a backstory. My whole family pretty much graduated from USC, and they wanted me to go to USC, but I ended up with a full ride to a smaller school. So. Hey, it was either, pay for half of my tuition, because I did have a scholarship to go to USC, but it wasn't full.
Yeah.
It was either, you either pay for half of the tuition or you let me go for free. So obviously I ended up going for free. That was a no-brainer. But in terms of how I became an Ohio State fan, I was a huge Eddie George fan. And so that's kind of, during his years when he was there, that's how I became an Ohio State fan. And I've just been a fan ever since. So, I think Eddie George, I guess that would have been early 90s, kind of when I was watching college football. I was like, hey, I like that guy. And I've been an Ohio State fan ever since.
Yeah, but you say USC, it's throwing me off because my brain says, like, University of Southern California. And I'm sure everybody in South Carolina says University of South Carolina is USC. Is that what's going on here? Yeah, that's what they call it, USC, University of South Carolina. Yeah. That's how it is over here in the real Columbia, as they call it. Because, now that Missouri's in the conference, it's, Columbia, Missouri, and Columbia, South Carolina. So the real Columbia, as they refer to it, is what I'm referring to. I'm not aware of this rival.
Be the real USC. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a rivalry between two Columbias that I'm not aware of?
Oh, absolutely. As soon as Missouri came into the conference, that's what it was. Who's the real Columbia?
Yeah, so Missouri plays in Columbia, Missouri. Is that what you're saying? I don't know this.
Yeah, and they're in the SEC now. That's the kicker.
Okay.
Missouri and Texas A&M came into the SEC in the same year, and that's kind of how that whole thing got started.
Do you ever get out to college games at all? Or are you too far away, or are we too old?
No. Listen, man. Which we probably won't do it this year, but me, my dad, my uncle, and my brother-in-law, we typically go to Charlotte every year for the the Chick-fil-A Classic kickoff. And so the Gamecocks are usually playing someone, either North Carolina State, some team across the border, and that's kind of our annual guy hangout trip. We go up there and watch the game. Usually have pretty good seats. I've been fortunate enough to be able to pay for them every year, which I'm sure they appreciate. That's my way of saying thanks, Dad, for being a good dad and stuff like that. And but yeah, it's usually pretty fun. We go up there, have a good time, and then we
tailgating.
No, we don't really tailgate, man. We get food at the game. Like I said, we try to keep it lax. I don't want to do too much. I've already got to drive. Now, when I lived up there, it was a lot easier. I just kind of go and they come meet me at the house, either stay overnight or something. But now that I'm about 3 hours away, roughly, I'll usually meet them somewhere and we'll drive to Columbia, pick my uncle up, and then we'll head on up to Charlotte.
What kind of athlete were you in high school? I presume you played some sports.
Yeah, I only played basketball. I ran cross country. Cross country was more of a prerequisite sport. So if we were playing basketball and we didn't play football, then cross country was what we had to do. And that was kind of a form of condition. In the end, cross country was really fun. The only thing I didn't like about it was my cross country coach he had this old Mazda Protege at the time, which, now I guess I'm dating myself. They don't even make that anymore. But this little Mazda Protege. And on Wednesdays, we had our 5-mile run. And it was 2.5 miles out, 2.5 miles back to the school. And it was just really, hilly, I guess, path that we were on. And what he would do is he'd get his Mazda Protege, and then he'd drive next to us to see how fast we were running, and just torture us. He said, "All right, Priester, yep, that's a good speed there." And then he'd go to the next person. "All right, yep, that's a good speed." And then he'd be at the end of the course at the 2.5 mile mark with the 8-ounce bottle of water. He'd hand it to us. We drink it. And he'd say, "All right, let's head back." And so that was kind of painful. But when basketball season came around, we were ready to go. I mean, we were in supreme shape in terms of, conditioning. So, I had a good time.
So basically, if you're on the basketball team, you had to basically do both sports as far as cross country and basketball. That was encouraged. That makes sense.
Unless you played football.
Then you don't have to do cross country?
Right, because they overlapped.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah,
what was your specialty in cross country? What was the event?
Well, I mean, it was pretty much all distance. Because, see, here's the cool thing about cross country. Cross country isn't like track where you want to come in first. It's actually really a team sport. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the best combined team time. So if you come in first place, and let's say you ran 5 miles in, I don't know, let's say 20 minutes. And that's just hypothetically. Well, if the next person on your team finishes at the 25-minute mark, and then the next person finishes at like the 30-minute mark, and the next person finishes at the 35-minute mark, well, then your team average is going to be pretty terrible. So the idea is that you want to have, maybe a guy finish at 20, maybe a guy finish at 20 and 15 seconds, a guy finish at 20 minutes and 30. And so you want to get that really good, strong team time to try to take it down. And that's kind of how you do it. So it's a really good team sport. Time. Yeah, exactly. So it's a good sport, man. I actually enjoyed it a lot in the end.
When was the last time you ran 1 to 5 miles?
In high school. Sometime in high school. Now I will say this. A couple years ago, prior to my youngest child, I was kind of biking about 10 miles a day, and that was in the gym. It wasn't outside, but in the gym. And I was doing 10 in about 30 minutes. But I mean, and the bike is a lot easier than running, a little bit easier on your knees. So, but like I said, that was, she's 3 now. So, and I did ride a mile yesterday because I'm starting to do some basketball training with some younger kids. Now that COVID's kind of taking away camps and stuff, everybody's reaching out to their coaches saying, hey, what can we do? So I've been training 2 guys twice a week. And so, that kind of gets me out, gets me a little bit more active. But yeah, man, that's kind of my life. I coach JV girls basketball. If you listen to any of the pods, a lot of the people know that. But yeah, I coach at Somerville High School, and it's a good little team.
Oh well, yeah, that's not too far at all from where I was at. How did you get involved in that?
Well, I started coaching. I guess maybe 8-9 years ago, and I've been here 5 years, and I've pretty much coached all. I've coached all 5 years that I've been here, and I started in middle school boys actually. That's where I started coaching, and then we were doing pretty well. I got a call from the high school, and they asked if I wanted to move up, and I said yeah. And then after I told them yeah, they said, well, it's girls. Have you ever coached girls? And I said no. I said, but basketball is basketball, and it's a little different because guys think they know everything, and they want to try all the new moves. They want to be Steph Curry. They want to shoot the James Harden step back. They want to do all those things, and they have terrible footwork. And so you're like, hey, man, I know you can shoot that step back, but do you know how to pivot? And, so that's kind of the difference with boys. With girls, they're typically going to listen more to what you say and try to execute. And, from time to time, not all girls, but sometimes they listen a little bit too much to what you say. And I'm like, hey, let's balance listening to what I say and thinking for yourself. Like, you're still a ball player. Like, just go out and be instinctive, and just kind of let the game flow. This is just a skeleton for you to work with, But yeah, so that's kind of what I consider, a difference between girls and boys. But I like coaching them both equally. Both bring their own challenges.
So diplomatic. You can't choose. I'm not going to give you a Sophie's choice or whatever. I was going to ask.
No, I mean I like them both. Yeah.
And also, girls and boys are getting different ages too. Obviously, your middle school versus high school, and different developmental times as well too. Well, are you like a D'Antoni type? Are you just chucking the threes? Are you you're grinding out some defense? Do I want to roster these girls in DFS or what?
Let's see. If I had honestly, I'd probably coach a little bit more like Pop, to be honest. And no, seriously, and I'm not saying that to boost myself, and I'm not saying I'm Pop by any means. I'm just saying,
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
I'm saying the way I approach coaching. Like, I don't care how good you are, everybody's getting coached the same. I've got a kid that he plays at a private school down here. Really good, man. Really good kid. He was good in middle school, but he was such a ball hog in middle school. I mean, he was awful. Like,
yeah.
Listen, he could probably drop 30 points a game in middle school, but he never passed the ball. And I told him one day, we were at practice, I said, hey, man, look, you can just, take my jersey off and you can just go home right now. And that might sound pretty aggressive, but if you play sports, sometimes you have to make a point. I said, look, I'm not telling you this. I'm not ashamed about it. I said, I want you to go home and tell your parents, I told you to go home because I didn't need you on my team.
Wow.
And his dad came back and said, Coach, I want to thank you for what you did with my son. That's what he needs. Because, if you're not going to be a good teammate, I don't care how good you are. It's a team game. And look, the crazy thing about team sports is the better players are going to excel anyway. But so you might as well just go ahead and be a good teammate, because if you're sharing with them, they're going to share with you. You'll get yours. They'll get theirs. Everybody's happy. But anyway, that's just me ranting. That's my coach rant, to say I consider myself to coach a little bit like Pop,
I think that's awesome what you did. That's awesome you did that. But I also think there's some sort of risk reward to it, because I'm sure you get some backlash from some parents who are not nearly as understanding as to what you're actually doing. And I'm sure that's a lot of fun to deal with as well.
Guess what? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've never got backlash from a parent.
Oh, wow. That's good.
I know that sounds crazy, but that's because I'm upfront. Like, I don't try to sell them the dream that every kid's going to play 30 minutes. It's not, and I think that's, especially in high school sports, if you let it get a little bit too political, and I've seen that happen too, where a coach gets a little bit too political, and now he's got a kid playing because his parents on the booster club, or his parents donating money to the program. Look, everybody's on an even playing field. The people that excel and do what I'm asking them to do are going to play more minutes. And, and my goal is for everybody to play. everybody's just not going to play equally, you know.
Sure.
And that's the way it works in the world, you know. And I tell the girls that, hey, look, in the real world, there's a manager, there's a CEO, you know, there's a CFO, there's a COO, there's a branch manager, there's a store manager, there's a store associate. Guess what? None of those people get paid the same. They all have their role to play, and it's the same thing on the court. You know, everybody can't be the same, but I'm going to coach you the same. Nobody's exempt from getting better, but the bottom line is everybody just isn't as good. If that was the case, if we looked at DFS, everybody would come in first at least once a week, and that's not the case.
If variance wasn't a thing, I would win every 20.
Oh, God, yeah, for sure. For sure. I get it right every day. I never have an injury. I never have a guy shoot 1 for 30. Like, it just be perfect.
Do you have you mentioned Popovich, do you have a favorite coach by chance? Doesn't have to be basketball, but somebody that you just sort of like, that's the guy or gal.
Yeah, I like Coach Dawn Staley. If we're going to talk about girls, I've got an autographed picture of her upstairs in my office. That's pretty motivational for me. Just because she's in the area and I've met her before. Not like personally just to talk to her, but, you know, just met her at camp and stuff like that. So I've got an autographed picture of her. I do like Pop as a coach. I've watched some of his philosophy videos, just hearing him talk about basketball and talk about how he approaches the game. I like Pop. Another guy that I like that I think is actually I'm not going to consider him under the radar, but I'm not sure if he gets maybe the type of respect that he deserves. I actually like Doc Rivers, and you know, not because it's just I've heard him coach in the locker room. I've heard him coach, you know, a couple of sound clips. I see what he likes to do, and I think he's a good coach. I think he's fair. I think now that he doesn't have as much responsibility in LA, I think it's kind of got him back to coaching the right way. And so Doc is a guy that I like as well.
Was his voice always like that, or is that just from coaching so many years? I always wonder, like, because
I don't know,
he's a
Dean.
guy that's constantly hoarse.
I don't know, Dean. I mean, I've got to think that after all these years, his voice has just been that same way.
Yeah. He's a guy that's done a lot of coaching and a lot of talking. Yeah. And, you can certainly – unless you sound like that like a 10. I have no idea. And there's no idea. You mentioned college. You were talking about, like, branches as far as a bank, too, and I feel like your brain kind of went there because – I just found this out the other day. You were a financial advisor, correct? Is that correct? Is that something?
Yeah. I was an advisor.
How do you fall into that?
Well, I mean, it's just kind of college, man. I got out of college, and my first job out of college, I was the manager of a furniture store. They had this management training program for like college grads, and so when I got out, I went into that, and I kind of learned a lot about business. You know, learned how to kind of run a store. You know, manage payroll, you know, run a P&L, manage inventory, manage a staff, manage marketing, you know, manage lending, just kind of stuff like that. And that kind of got me interested on the business side. And then after that, you know, I went to the banking world, and the rest was kind of history from there. You know, I started as a personal banker, and then I started personal banker, kind of worked my way up within the personal banker role. So when you work at a bank, there's like personal banker 1, personal banker 2, personal banker 3, and you kind of go through all these different steps. And so I was a personal banker, and then they added this title, you know, a business champion or a business advocate. And so, you know, I got a chance to deal with a lot of small business owners and stuff like that. And then I got licensed. So I had my Series 7, Series 66. And after that, I went into the advisory role. And
how hard is that test, out of curiosity? I've heard people talking about the Series 7.
So for me, it wasn't as bad because I kind of been in the industry a little bit. You know, I'd always kind of been in the stocks and stuff. And it's not all about stocks, but you know, once you understand the concepts of it all, I think it's pretty easy. If you're going into it blind, though, I will tell you it's a tough test because you're basically studying probably a month and a half. It's like taking a college course in a month and then having to go take like the exam to pass it. And you know, a lot of times with those particular tests, I think the pressure comes in where, you know, when I took my first exam, if I didn't pass the exam, I wasn't going to have a job. So, you know, different pressure for different people. But, you know, when you're taking those exams, you better you better buckle in, because at the end of the road, if you don't pass and there's not going to be a job waiting for you, now you're kind of having to look for something else. So, but yes, it's a tough exam for sure.
You mentioned stocks. Is there a stock story you have? Like you bought Apple like in 2000 or Cisco like in 1995 or whatever. Is there one that kind of got away for whatever reason? Like you had your eye on it and you just passed on it. And you look back and say, man, if I only would have invested in X, I'd be swimming.
I mean, not really, not really, because I think you have to know what type of investor you are when you're in the industry. And some people, and here's my philosophy on it, and it's kind of because I came through the ranks. But if you've got $5,000 to invest, more than likely you probably just need to put it in a mutual fund and let it work for you, because you're going to have all the shares in there anyway. So a mutual fund is going to give you exposure to a lot of those companies that you're talking about. They'll have some Apple built in. They'll have some Amazon built in. They'll have some Google built in. They'll have some Microsoft built in. They'll probably have some Exxon built in, just stuff like that. And a lot of what they have built in depends on the risk level. So, if it's what you call a large cap fund, then obviously you're going to have a lot of your larger companies in there anyway. And so you can build your portfolio that way, and just kind of see what the top companies are they have in there. They may have 10% of one, 3% of one. I'm just using that, just throwing numbers out there. Nothing.
They're not
specific.
Sexy though, right? Mutual funds aren't sexy.
Well, I mean,
they're safe.
It depends.
Generally.
Well,
is that wrong?
I don't want to get into that. See, now my brain is.
I added generally. I put a qualifier.
Yeah. I mean, generally, if you put your money in a mutual fund, all right. So I got to go here, especially if it's an allocation fund. So, in an allocation fund, right? There's different funds. It's like a group of 5 mutual funds. You've got this manager trying to make it all work together. So, especially if you're doing allocation, I think allocation is definitely a little safer than just say your standard mutual fund. Obviously, I'm not trying to sell anyone. So, but I think mutual funds are good for the small or mid-range investor. If you've got $1 million to invest, if you've got an advisor, they can probably diversify your portfolio for you. But if you've got 20 grand, 25 grand, I would say a mutual fund is always good, and you should see the same over time. We typically run over time. You should see about the same appreciation as the general market as a whole. So, at any rate, that's just kind of my little take on it.
Yeah, people want to play small sample sizes, I'm sure, and come back at you and say it's gone down X number of percent in the last 4 days.
I mean, look, that's why you get a prospectus with a mutual fund, and they'll give you, a year out, 5 years out, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they'll kind of show you how the fund has done, over that span. And typically, those funds are going to outperform any safe savings account or money market fund or CD that you put in a traditional bank. But
let's talk DFS. I presume.
Oh yes. Yes.
Let's do it. I only have you for so long, and I have so many more financial questions. I'm curious. That's something that kind of piques my brain and something I'm into as well. And I'm sure you can educate me. But all right, so DFS. I presume you were in some sort of season-long league with friends or college people or high school people or family, and then that's kind of sort of eventually one day you see a commercial and says, "But what is this? Is this legal? Is this real for DK or for FanDuel? Is that kind of how it happens?"
Yeah, Dean, how did you know? Doesn't that sound like everybody's story? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I mean, yes, definitely season long. I've been playing with buddies, and I was pretty. And honestly, I still have one season long league that I still play in for bragging rights. I have to do it, especially when they know you play DFS, and they're like, "Oh, you're so good at that stuff, but you're not going to beat us this year." Well, I probably am. But
you can't win. Even if you win, you're supposed to win. If you lose, it's like, well, how do you lose? You're an expert.
Right. So I do have one season long that I'm still in, and that one I'll probably never let it go unless I pass away. Hopefully that's not soon. But that's how I got into it. I had a couple friends in Charlotte that I played with a lot that work for a company called ADP, a payroll processing company, and so I played with them for a good deal. And ironically, that's not the same one I'm still in. But, the year I was kind of playing with them, we had this draft. God, I can't remember the name of the spot where we did our draft at. But, same kind of scenario. This commercial comes on about winning and, they're selling you the dream. And I said, well, I guess I'll try it out. It was DraftKings. And I think I threw $25 on there. Just kind of threw a lineup together, trying to see how it would work. It was in a $3 contest. Never forget it. And I won $5. And I said, okay. So, I won a little something.
What did you deposit? You make a big deposit or just kind of like dip your toes in right away?
Oh, no, $25. $25.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I put in there. Yeah. And so I played that week, won $5 and I looked and I did see that, oh man, somebody won like $100,000. Like, wow, that's cool.
That's better than $5.
Right. And of course I played the next week. I think I might've won $20 the next week or something like that. A little bit more than what I did the week before. But when I looked in that contest, I think maybe E. Hafner might have taken it down 2 weeks in a row or something. I mean, at that time, E. Hafner, Condia, who else was really big at that time? Yeah, Sayo Su, yeah, all those guys were playing and just kind of crushing it. And so I said, well, this can't be ironic or a coincidence if the same guys are kind of close to the top every week. So then I started Googling, how DFS worked, how to research, how to put some things together. And of course I stumbled upon RotoGrinders, obviously. And, so I started, watching the videos and stuff like that. And, I kind of got better progressively. And then I ended up hopping off of DK and I got on Fantasy Aces at the time. And on Fantasy Aces, I just kind of started building my bankroll. And I started getting a little better. And then I started playing on, a little better. Started playing on FanDuel a little bit. Realized FanDuel was much better for the way I approach DFS than DK actually. And so, I know there are a lot of people that seemingly like FanDuel, but I like it a lot because it keeps me profitable. And so that's why I play there mostly.
Most important.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then this is the real kicker to my DFS story. A lot of people may not remember this if you're newer, but I know you remember it, Dean. Fantasy Aces was going bankrupt, and I had no clue. Keep in mind, I had a couple grand on there. I think a couple grand on Fantasy Aces, and that was kind of like my DFS bankroll, my lifeline. I'm sitting here telling my wife at the time that, hey, I'm getting really good at this. At some point, no more full-time job. This is it. At some point, I wasn't rushing it, but that was kind of my end game. And I had a couple grand. I was starting to do a lot better on FanDuel. And so I put in a withdrawal request at Fantasy Aces. I said, I'm taking all my money out. I'm going to put it on FanDuel. I'm just going to focus. And it took them a lot longer than usual to give me the money. And so I was a little bit confused. But finally, I did get it. And I think about a week later, it comes out that they were bankrupt. And I said, oh, my God. Had I lost, a couple $1,000s, on a site, like I would have been devastated, You
might have been chased away from the whole concept, like all together. You might have been gone.
Yeah, I mean that may have. I mean, I would have had to essentially build my bankroll back up, and that might have crushed me. But so I kind of did that, and once I got rolling on FanDuel, I just kind of got progressively better. At the time, I watched a whole lot of Roto Academy. Like you guys, you don't even know how much I watched Roto Academy, just watching videos, reading articles, trying to get better. JM was there, Cheese was there.
Noto Cards, I think.
Yeah, Noto, all those guys. I mean, I read all the material I could, and so if I can encourage new players, like give yourself time to progressively get better. Like if you win 100,000 the first night, trust me, it's beginner's luck. You're not going to repeat it anytime soon. And so you need to have a good, solid process. Yeah, for sure. I got you. But I got progressively better, and that's kind of how I got into the industry. And once I kind of went full time, I gave myself some milestones to hit, some goals, and I was able to reach all those goals except 2 at the moment. And if you've been playing any length of time, you probably know what those 2 are. But I've reached every DFS goal so far except 2, and I'm definitely going to hit those 2 at some point.
Do you want to win a live final? Do you want to win $1 million? Is that what they are?
Exactly. There you go. I've made it to a couple live finals. Didn't win them, obviously. And obviously I want to take down a milli at some point. And those are kind of my two goals that I have left standing. If I can knock those out, I'll feel really good about my DFS career. Not that I don't already, but those are just some goals that I want to accomplish.
It's interesting because when I talk to people, like a lot of times I'll ask them, like, what is your goal? Like, what are you trying to do? And some people don't have an answer. And other people like just want to have fun. They just want to kind of screw around and take. I want to turn $20 into $1 million. I want to have that dream. I want to be able to go to bed at night and think that this is plausible. And others just want to like build a nice positive ROI. And like, I don't play the tournament that's $2 million total prize pool and $1 million on top. Like, I'm not playing that unless I have a ticket and I'm forced to play it because I don't. If my brain doesn't work that way as far as let's build a lineup that's so goofy. It's going to make sense and be a single outlier and, embrace variance, yada, yada. But I guess you're okay with that. And you understand what you're doing and understand why you're happy to take on that challenge. And that's not for me, but it's awesome if it's for you and for everybody else.
Yeah, well, here's the crazy part, D. Watch this. This will probably make you laugh. What if I told you most of my larger nights in DFS are single bullets? Most of them. Most of them.
In large field tournaments, or you're talking about single entry?
Well, no. Well, large field and let's go single entry, stuff like that. So for instance, my first night, and this is my first big win in DFS. So I think it probably coincides pretty good. It was in MLB. I remember I stacked the Braves. Obviously, the Braves are my favorite team. I didn't stack them for that reason. They were facing some terrible pitcher. I can't even remember his name. But I stacked the Braves and kind of ran some one-offs. I know for sure. No, it wasn't Yu Darvish. Who was the pitcher? Can't remember the pitcher either. That was another big night. But either way, I know I stacked the Braves for my first big win, and it was a single.
You're probably facing them. The Braves, right?
Yeah. They may have. But it was a single bullet, and whenever I'm running single bullet, I pretty much run the same lineup in every contest. So from the monster all the way down. That's typically what I'm going to do. At the time, I didn't play the monster that night for whatever reason. I can't remember. But, it was kind of getting late in the night. I had Robbie Ray. That's who it was. Robbie Ray was my pitcher. And I remember Robbie kind of cruising. He was at home. And, I realized he was up to about 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs. I said, man, we might have a little shot. And Robbie kind of kept going. And for whatever reason, he was low owned that night. And I don't know why. Like, I have no clue. But he was low owned that night. And I started climbing. And eventually, I hit first. And so now you're just trying to hope that Mike Trout doesn't hit a home run at like 1 a.m. Because Mike Trout was out there, right? Mike Trout was out there. So you're just hoping. You're just like, man, if Mike Trout can just kind of keep getting walked, single and double us to death, we should be okay. And I remember – I think I fell asleep and woke up, and I pulled up my FanDuel account and looked at my winnings, and I had to take a double take because that the first time my first big win was around 98,000, and that was off of a single bullet. I mean, I took down the squeeze, the home run, everything, you name it, first in everything.
Was this possibly April 17th, 2017? Does that kind of check out as far as the calendar in your brain? I pulled up your RG account here, and a $55 buy-in, you finished first out of 5,000 on FanDuel. Same night, the $4 buy-in, you finished first out of 58,000. It's probably that.
That's probably it. That's probably it, man. That's probably it. And the rest was kind of history after that, because I pretty much walked out of the door. I worked another couple months, but at that point, I had enough money to sustain myself, and I didn't have a lot of debt at the time anyway, so. I pretty much had enough to kind of keep cruising. And after that, man, I just kind of took off. I've had some other major wins, along the way, especially during NBA season, just kind of had some big wins. And I've pretty much been able to at least clear 6 figures in at least one contest every year, which makes up for, a whole year's salary. And some, obviously I make a little more than that, but just every year, I know for sure I'm at least going to take 1 or 2 down that are going to give me that 6 figure payday that we're all kind of looking for. And usually it's on a single bullet most of the time. If you're looking at my history, I'm not looking at it, but most of my big nights, if you look, it's single bullet. I didn't do MME or anything. Now I take it back 2 years ago or last year, I can't remember. I took down like the what is it called in NBA, like on FanDuel, the 7-7, the shot. I think I took down the shot for 100K, and I probably ran about 40 lineups that night or something. But I hand built them all, like, because I wanted a certain. But I did that because I wanted a certain way. I stacked a whole lot of Washington, a whole lot of Charlotte. Like, I just stacked that game probably at least 20, 30 different ways, and it ended up being right. I remember, I think I ended up winning by maybe a fourth or a tenth of a point or something because Orlando ended up blowing out Milwaukee that game. So so Giannis and Middleton, all those guys didn't really play the fourth quarter. And that kind of kept me in first. And that was I think that was maybe, 2019, I guess. But, yeah, at any rate, it's a fun ride. I know I've been hogging up the conversation, Dean. So
you're good. You're good. This is all about you, man. It's not about me. I'm just here to ask questions. Take me through, the live finals. Do you remember any of the sweats as far as getting there? What are your memories as far as actually being at the live finals? I assume, guessing here, you probably met some of the RG guys. Is that kind of how you got hooked up with RG, or is it a different story?
Yeah. My very first live final was an MLB final. I think that's the first time I met Hoop. For sure, that's how me and Dan linked up, which kind of, facilitated a path for me to be able to come to RG and, try to provide some content. And but yeah, my first live final, I'll never forget how I got there. It was a New York Yankees stack. And I actually won it on an early slate of all slates. Won it on an early slate. And for some reason, the Yankees weren't that high owned. Like, Judge wasn't high owned at the time. And, I was just kind of shocked that they weren't. But that's kind of how I got there to the MLB Live Final. And then the MLB Live Final I didn't do as well as I wanted to. I think I ended up stacking the Mets against it was the Phillies. It was the Phillies against a really bad Mets pitcher, and I can't even remember his name. He was god-awful.
A lot of guys
the Phillies. Oh, gosh. The Phillies just did not score runs that day. It was just terrible. And so I didn't do well on that one. Something. Yeah, it was awful. Seriously. The worst pitcher probably on the slate, and they didn't do anything. And a lot of people weren't on the Phillies. Of course, I can't remember if the Rockies were on that slate or not. I don't think they were. But then the NBA one, I'll never forget that one because I ended up stacking the Lakers game. It was a Lakers-Philly game, and it was a late-night hammer. And I remember getting Joel Embiid at like 2 or 3%. And I had Ben Simmons, I think, around the same thing, 2 or 3%. And I think I had 1 or 2 Lakers in there. And so it would have been Julius Randle. He would have been there at the time.
Yeah.
And that's the night, like, Joel Embiid went off for, like, 70, 80. And Ben Simmons went off for about the same thing. And, so that whole game, and I think Randall probably had 50. It was crazy. So that whole game.
Are you up watching it? You're on the East Coast. Are you up watching that game like 1 o'clock in the morning?
No, I was not. Yeah, I was
You wake up and you see you won.
Yeah, you wake up, you see you won. And so that was kind of how I got to my other live final. And during that live final, I ended up playing Trey Burke at point guard for like 3,500, and I was the only person I think that had him in the live final out of like 75 to 100 spots. And Trey Burke goes off for like 30.
Oh. And
so I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a good night. And I stacked the OKC Golden State game, and they just didn't get there. And then Phoenix and Portland went in overtime or something. I was like, well, there goes that. And so that's kind of how my second live final went. But all in all, man, crazy good experiences. Definitely want to try to get to another one. I need to at least check off the NFL live final. I haven't made it to one of those. And yeah, let's see if we can take one down.
You mentioned Coors Field. I saw on your Twitter a general rule: you just never play Coors.
Yes, that's my general rule of thumb, Dean. And here's what I'm saying: if it's a normal slate, right? So I'm not talking about like a 2-game midnight slate or
sure.
Something like that. I'm saying 4 or 5 games. More than likely, I'm going to fade Coors, and probably not even more than likely. As a general rule, I'm going to fade Coors every time. Simply because I don't feel like you get the return over time that you need. So, Coors is only going to have, in my opinion, and I guess I should get some data to back this up. This is a data-driven business. But I don't feel like if you play Coors, you're going to get 15 to 20 runs once a week. That's not how it works. A lot of times you'll stack Coors, and it's still just a normal 3 to 5 game. They're going to have their couple games a year where they go off for 15 runs or 12 runs. But generally speaking, they're not going to outscore the average team. I mean, if you pull up the rankings right now, the Rockies aren't scoring the most runs in the league. If you pull up from last year, it's probably like, I don't know, probably not Boston last year, but I don't know who it would be last year because I'm sure Minnesota's up there somewhere scoring a bunch of runs. But you get what I'm saying? They're not.
How you score them too is important. I'm pretty sure Coors is not the league leading ballpark for homers. It's a better doubles and triples ballpark than it's a good homer park, but it's not an amazing homer park.
Yeah, absolutely. So generally speaking, I'm not going to load up on Coors at all. If Trevor Story fits in against a lefty because it works against my other stack, okay. But, you're not going to catch me playing 4 guys from Coors. And the other reason, too, is because you're playing them and the prices are inflated. So who's going to be more important to me today? Is it Max Scherzer against Miami, or is it Coors against, Jeff Samardzija? It's absolutely going to be Max Scherzer against, the Marlins. And that doesn't mean Max has got a clear path to 12 strikeouts, but the likelihood of Max going 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, in my opinion, is more highly likely than, the Rockies scoring 12 runs against Jeff Samardzija.
You're talking my cash game baseball language, like arms are more predictive than bats. There you go. I do want to get to some fun stuff. I only have you for so long because we're up against the clock, unfortunately. Not that this wasn't fun. I didn't mean that. You're a Hornets fan. That's not fun, actually. Terrible segue, dude.
Oh, my gosh.
What's it like being a Hornets fan?
It's like watching the same show every day for the past 10 years, hoping you're going to get a new episode, but you never get it.
It's always a bad episode.
Yeah, that's what it's like. But, I've been a fan so long. I think I don't think we've drafted well. And I'll say that because, the best draft pick we've had in the past, 10 years has been Kemba. And now Kemba's gone to Boston. And, hey, I get it if you didn't want to pay him the max contract and stuff like that. There's a monetary aspect of the business that I think a lot of times us as fans, we don't completely get because we're not in the front office. We're not looking at the salary cap. We're not looking at, what's going to make sense for the team financially. But I think if you draft better, then you can work out the finances a little bit better on the back end. And so I'm looking at all the guys we've missed on, particularly one year when I said, man, we need to draft Devin Booker. We need shooting. And I think we either drafted Noah Vonleh or Frank Kaminsky. I can't even remember what year it is. But when we did that, and I was at the arena for the draft, because, they let fans come into the draft. And I was at the arena, and I just sat there for about 5 minutes in just total disgust. I mean, it was just god-awful. And so if you looked at Devin Booker now versus the other 2 guys that I mentioned, it's like night and day. And so those are some of the mistakes I think we've made over time. I think we've switched coaches a little bit too much. I don't think we've hired the right coaches. I think Steve Clifford was a good coach, and then we just let him go to Miami. And, it's just not Miami, Orlando, excuse me. I think it's just little things like that I feel like we've whiffed on over time, which just keeps setting us further and further back. And that's kind of the disappointing part about being a fan. I think the highlight of me being a Hornets fan over the past 10 years is the fact that they're the Hornets again and not the Bobcats. I think that's kind of the highlight of my fandom.
They're the Bobcats for like 5 years, maybe 4 years.
Yeah.
That was a weird time. I thought you were saying the highlight was this is even more than 10 years ago, obviously, and I'm not exactly sure how old you are, but like the old school Hornets, Lonzo, LJ, Muggsy. You had Rex Chapman before he became this like Twitter phenom.
Yeah, I mean the best, man, and even after that, the David Wesley era, the Eddie Jones era,
Kendall.
Well, Dell was kind of there with the older guys. Kendall Gill was there. Let's see who else.
Fun team, good uniforms.
Well, I mean, and then here's the other thing. Then we picked up the team. We moved to New Orleans, and they get Chris Paul, and they get AD, and you know what I'm saying? It's just like, gosh, man. you pick the team up, you move them. Thank God they changed their name to the Pelicans so we could get it back. But it's just been tough sledding, man. And hopefully, who's the other guy? The 3-point shooter, Glen Rice. Glen Rice was there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like we had some good times, man. But they just kind of slowly faded away, and hopefully we can get those back. But I don't think that's going to happen with this current team.
It's not looking very promising. Yeah, as a Miami Heat fan, I loved Rice back in the day. Like that's basically his two teams. I think he ended up on. Yeah. I think he was a Laker at some point. A cup of coffee.
Chasing the championship, probably. Yeah.
Did you stick with the Pelicans when they moved? Were you a Pelicans fan all of a sudden, or you're like too bitter?
No, they became the Bobcats. So listen, I'm sticking with my team in Charlotte, but I guess maybe I should have moved, but I wouldn't have been in that much better shape with all the other good teams up there. I guess I could have been a Zion fan now, but I don't really care about that.
I'm forgetting now. Did the entire team move, or
yes?
All the players moved to New Orleans, right?
Yeah. The owner just packed up and took it away.
Oh, that's just brutal. So I went through your Twitter timeline. I'm going to say your favorite TV show is The Office. Maybe?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The Office is probably one of my all-time greats. And listen, it's a quirky show, but man, it's such a dry funny until it makes me laugh all the time. I mean, I've watched The Office all the way through at least 3 times.
Okay.
And it's just funny, man. I mean, it's just a funny show to me anyway. And I've actually started watching Parks and Recreation recently because I wanted to try to see, can I get it? And it's been funny. I mean, I've enjoyed it as well. But man, The Office is that's definitely my all-time favorite for sure.
It's so funny because I had that conversation multiple times about the Parks and Rec too. And the tricky part with Parks and Rec is it stumbles out the gate. It's not that good. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not special. It takes a season or two to kind of find its legs. They change the cast up a little bit, but once they find where they're at, it's a really, really good show. But
I think I'm in season 4, 3 or 4, something like that. I think I'm where Leslie Knope is running for office now, and so we're kind of in the sweet spot of it all. Yeah. And she's got her little boyfriend that she's trying to hide from the public. And Ann is all confused about
Ann Perkins.
Ann Perkins. Ann Perkins.
Literally.
Literally, yes. So, oh god, that's so funny. But so that's kind of where I'm at in the show. And so I'm kind of in a groove now with it. It's a good little show. But you're absolutely right, Dean. I mean, out of the gate, it's god awful.
You got to persevere. You got to power through.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've seen The Office 3 times through. Do you have a favorite episode or two that kind of pops in your head? And like non-core four character members, your favorite 2 or 3 like fringe characters, I guess the supporting characters.
Well, listen, let me give you my favorite quote from the show. And I've said this quote probably 1,000 times. I don't know why it makes me laugh so much, but it's an Andy Bernard quote of all quotes. It's an Andy Bernard quote. And so Andy says, well, they say you can't mix business with pleasure. Well, tell me, I want to know, how in the world do you run a putt-putt golf company? That's like my favorite quote.
You tweeted that out. I remember saying
yes, that's like my favorite quote from that show of all time. And then my other favorite scene, and I'll get to my characters in a minute, but my other favorite scene is we've got Stanley, and so Ryan is there. And Stanley's daughter's there. She's trying to hit on him. And he got him in the back. Oh, my God. He's got him in the back. And he's just screaming at him, that is a little girl. Do you hear me? Look at me when I'm talking to you. Nobody can save you now. I don't care if it's Jesus. Like, it's just so funny. And then
Kelly's watching and, like, she's, like, jealous of the situation, right?
Right. And then this cut scene. And Ryan's like, I've never been so terrified of any person in my life. So man, that's probably like my other favorite scene. But in terms of I guess fringe characters, because I guess I kind of essentially like them all, and they all kind of play their own role.
Except like Nelly. Nobody likes Nelly.
Yeah, I mean, but Nelly was a needed part of the show for a little while. I think my best fringe character is probably Not Daryl. What's the guy from the warehouse? The Chinese guy.
Man, now I'm forgetting that. I don't know who that is. Am I just
because he didn't appear in a lot of episodes, but every time he said something, it was funny. I do operation on guy in Yakuza. Who is it? Hide. Yes, I do operation on guy from Yakuza, and I have steady hand. I operate, and and essentially at the end of the show, you find out he actually did kill the guy on purpose, but during the show, he didn't really let that on. So yeah, I think he's kind of my favorite French character. But he comes in way later, like when they're going. I think that's probably even almost after Michael's gone. But yeah, he's a good French. I like his character a lot.
Producer Devin coming through in our ears, letting us know the character name. Ironically, Producer Devin, especially when he has the beard going. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Will. He looks like Mose a little bit, right?
Oh, all right. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that, Devin.
I don't mean it as an insult.
I'm not agreeing with this. I cannot put my stamp of approval on this at all. I'd give him more Andy Bernard when he comes back from that island vacation that he had for 3 months. Okay, so here's another one. And Andy's not my favorite character, but for some reason his moments pop in my head. This is another favorite moment of mine when Andy comes back from the vacation like nothing's wrong. And it says, so Angela, do you have any checks for me? It's like, hey, bro, you've been gone 3 months. You want to collect your checks? Yeah, funny show, man. Funny show.
We have a couple minutes before we step aside and get out of here. We did a show the other day on sports cards. Check that out, by the way. Check out our sports card show. You appear regularly. That's good times. And you're obviously starting to collect sports cards again. I'm just there asking questions mostly. I used to collect cards back in the day, and I'm just educating myself listening to you guys. But you came in quoting wrestling. So I'm curious, who is your favorite wrestler? Maybe power rank a couple that kind of pop out for you.
Man, look, I mean, I feel like I kind of grew up in the golden age of wrestling. So, I think my favorite wrestler actually is Sting. Sting would have been my absolute favorite. Next to that, in terms of personality, I mean, I just feel like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock are like 1A, 1B. Like when those two personalities were on at the WWF at the time, you just could. I mean, it was just good entertainment. And then, of course, you know how I felt about D-Generation X. They had their group. That was a good one. Let me see who else. Goldust. Not Goldust. Diamond Dallas Page was another one, but he was more WCW though.
Diamond Cutter.
DDP. I like DDP. Guys that had a lot of personality. He
got in a lawsuit with Jay-Z over that. He got in a lawsuit with the Diamond Cutter, the symbol, I believe. Are you aware of this?
That I did not know.
I don't remember who was suing who, but somebody was suing somebody over using the symbol or whatever, and I don't know how it went. But if only
makes sense. Makes sense.
The other thing we talked about pre-show, let's power rank these three before you step aside and get out of here. You made me hungry. We were talking about donuts, and now let's throw cupcakes and cookies in the conversation.
Yes.
Power rank donuts versus cookies versus cupcakes.
Oh man! So look, I'm gonna give cookies the leg up here, and the reason why is there's so many good cookies. I don't think you can beat a good Oreo dipping it in that milk, man. You just a good old fashioned Oreo in the milk.
So you classic Oreo, or you like one of these funky flavors?
No, classic. Now, in terms of secondary Oreos, the cinnamon bun Oreos are really good, but they don't make those all the time. But cinnamon bun Oreos, those are good. But a good classic Oreo with a glass of milk, man, that is great. Then you got chocolate chip, you got sugar, you got snickerdoodle, you've got white chocolate macadamia nut. I mean, listen, cookies are great. So cookies, I think, are going to be number one. For me, and it's got to be specific. Let's go Krispy Kreme donuts specifically. Number two.
When they're hot.
Yes, when they're hot. I mean, when the glaze is just dripping on your hands as you eat them and you take a bite and then all the flakes are all on your shirt. It's just a good time. And then lastly, obviously, cupcakes. And I like cupcakes and cake and regular cake. But cookies, donuts, cupcakes. That's my power ranking.
There you go. We're going to end on a high note. There you go. We're going to end strong with desserts. I'm going to leave you hungry. I apologize for that. Much more I wanted to get to, but we're up against the clock. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Will, thanks for joining me. Anything else you want to say? Feel free to say to the people out there. I guess stay tuned. We'll have some coverage as far as sports soon enough, I imagine. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, man. Let's hope the bubble keeps the bubble. in Orlando, and we'll have some sports. And then baseball is supposed to start almost a week earlier, about 6 days, I think it is, before the NBA season. So everybody, let's get excited. Let's don't leave KBO. We still need them at 5:30 in the morning, just in case things don't work out. Please continue to fund your KBO contest as well, because we don't want to miss out on those small prize pools in the event that these other sports shut down.
Much appreciate your time. That was Will Priester. You guys know him better as Chief Justice. I was Dean. This was the Morning Grind. We're out of here. Holler!